Hello everyone, it's Lynette with Grammy Crochet. Today is the 5th of December 2020. This will be Charm Chatter 108, I think. It's Vlogmas Day 5, even though this is probably, I think, only my third one. I've not been very good about this. Um, but, when you don't have nothing to talk about, then there's just really not much to do. So I still haven't, crocheting has not been my top priority. I mean, it always is a top priority, don't get me wrong, but I haven't had a lot of time for it in the last while. I'm so behind on Christmas. It's just stuff, taking care of Dad isn't hard. He's pretty much self-sufficient, but I don't want him to eat dinner by himself every day, so I'm there for dinner every day. And it's a half an hour there, a half an hour home, eating with him. Even if I don't eat, I just am there with him while he eats. Grocery shopping for him as well as for us. And I like to take him, grocery shopping for himself. So he knows what's in his house, and and even though I only work part-time, that takes up a lot of time. And I'm finding that we're doing our family Christmas on the 20th, on Sunday the 20th. And I just realized that this morning. I have 15 days. I have not baked one cookie. But Chloe was over yesterday. She spent the night Thursday night and into Friday, and we had plans that Thursday night we would bake cookies, and maybe a batch or two, and then Friday we would make bread, and while the bread is rising we would bake cookies. Well, Thursday came and I was exhausted. I was really busy at work on Thursday and I was so tired. So I didn't have to go see Dad. Chloe went, and so she came over after, and I just was exhausted, and my legs hurt from I stand at work quite a bit, and I was standing all day at work. My legs were tired. I was busy. Look at this hair, it's terrible. So I was just mentally done, and so we did not bake on Thursday night. We wrapped Christmas presents. Mostly she wrapped and I talked. But it was a great help. She got a lot of Christmas wrapping done for me. Um, and I do enjoy wrapping Christmas presents, but I was putting spa kits together, and some of them I'm wrapping. My husband bought just those fleece little blankets, little tiny throws that they were on sale at Menards for just a few dollars, and so he bought those, and I thought, oh, how cute that would be to wrap them. Well, it was a pain in the rear end, I'll tell you, but I did wrap some of them in there. Just use the blanket as the wrapping, and they're like looking, but they're staying that way, so who cares? So I wrapped those, and Chloe wrapped Christmas presents for people for me. And then Friday morning we got up really early and started baking the bread. Rolls, we make it into rolls for Christmas dinner, and they freeze really well. So, but Dad has been having a problem with his dentures and his mouth, and so I had to make him a dentist appointment, and he had to go at noon on Friday. So Chloe went with me, thank goodness, because there was still a lot of snow and he uses a walker, and so I was really glad that we had the extra hands to make sure he doesn't fall. And so anyway, the dentist fixed the problem, and his mouth will heal real well. He felt like 100% better. He could actually eat. He was having trouble eating. He didn't want to wear his teeth. So good news there. So I know this is all not yarny stuff, but that's where life has been the last 2 days. So I didn't really have anything to show as far as crochet goes. But last night I did start, remember this, and I didn't bring a cup to put in here, but this, or a can or anything. This is the mug glove that Crystal from Bag O' Day put the pattern out. I'll link this. And this is the one I made as the prototype to see if we liked it and how well it worked out. And so this one was the one I made for my husband. This is yarn. I love this yarn from Hobby Lobby in the color, I don't know, sandy gray. And that's what the outside is. And I'm telling you, I really do love this yarn. It is so nice to work with. It's so soft. It's just 100% acrylic. Then the inside of the mug holder, where you put the actual can in here, is made out of cotton. And Crystal says use the cotton because it'll absorb the sweat and keep your hand warmer. And so you start with the inside, and you make this little like sleeve, which is not big enough for a cup, or I mean a can. You have to like stretch it out. You put a can in it a few times and then it'll stretch out. So last night I made 2 of the insides. I think I have to decide how many I'm going to make. This one, like I said, was for my husband. But I have more yarn, and this is just gray Premier. And this color is pewter. But it's all single crochet. There's double crochets on the bottom to make it round, and then you single crochet all of this. And all of this is single crochet, except this might be half double. I don't remember on the ribbing. But all of this is single crochet, so it's really, once you make one of the insides, I mean, it's pretty brainless. It's just single crochet in the round until you get 24 rows. Not that I want to give away the pattern, but it's very simple, and I could do that and be brainless again yesterday. So I started those last night, fell asleep. I'm almost done with the third one. I just have to decide how many I really want to make. My husband and my 2 boys for sure are getting one. And it doesn't necessarily have to be for a guy, but the women are getting spa kits or Christmas, you know, pot holders and towels and things. So I'm thinking that I'll, you know, for my boys and my 2 brother-in-laws and my nephews, whose wives will be getting something. So there's like another 3, so maybe 6 altogether, or 7. I don't know. I don't count so well sometimes, I guess. My 2, Doug, Matt, Tori, Jenny, 7 total. I don't know. I don't know if I'll do that many of them, because it's, I can, it doesn't take long to make it, so that's good news. Like if you're just on it and not falling asleep while you're doing it, they don't take long to make, but it is real brainless, and that kind of crochet tends to make me want to fall asleep in the evening. So I don't know how many. I'm gonna not kill myself to get through those. So that's that. I haven't been to my post office box in the last couple days, so I don't know if I have any happy mail there, but I don't have any so far. And I did want to, so this is totally not yarny, but since this is a vlogmas, I'm going to go with this. Every year over like my whole lifetime, when I was very young, my great grandmother, who died in 1963, I remember that because it was a terrible, terrible storm, and my parents were at her funeral. I was 6, and they were at her wake, and I was so afraid. We had to stay with family friends, my brother and I, and it was this terrible storm, and we had to hide under the basement steps, and I think it was my first tornado that I can ever remember being alive for. And I was scared to death that my parents were gonna get like Wizard of Oz, like their car is gonna go and they're gonna end up in Oz, and I'll never see them again. So anyway, she was a very sweet woman, that great grandmother of mine, and she used to bake with me all the time. My mom would she lived with my grandmother, my dad. This is on my dad's side of the family, so it's my dad's mom's mom. And my dad's mom didn't drive, so my mom would take my grandmother shopping every week, They would do their grocery shopping together, and my mom would do the driving, and I would stay with my great grandmother. And so to entertain me, we would bake. I only remember baking bread with her. I don't remember baking cookies and stuff like that, but apparently we did that too. But I only remember the bread. And we'd always make it into rolls. I don't know why we just call it bread instead of rolls, but that's what we've always said. So when she passed away, she had given my mother, before she passed away, she had given my mother her recipe. And my mom and I started baking bread. My mom always says I taught her how to make bread when I was like 6. I actually started, I guess, making the bread with my great grandmother when I was about 4. And if you want to listen to this story, you might enjoy it. If you don't, that's completely fine, and I understand. Just click off and I'll see you next video. But so great grandma Sally was her name, Grandma Sally. She was old and little. I think she probably weighed 95 pounds, soaking wet. I always remember her in a black dress. Always wore a black dress. Always had her hair pulled back into a bun, like the very, definite grandma looking. She would wear those black shoes with the little tiny heels that were like a solid shoe with the open toe. Remember those? Like, she wore those quite a bit. But I only remember her wearing black. I don't know why. Maybe that's all she had, but that's all I remember. But I was very young. Anyway, she was very sweet and sturdy old woman. And so we would bake, and the bread is she had this big bread bowl, like a big crock bowl, and she would put it in the sink, and she'd push this wooden ladder back chair up against the sink, and I would stand on the chair, and she'd give me a wooden spoon, and I would be mixing in the ingredients. And if you pause this video and get a pencil and paper, I will give you my great grandmother's recipe. So first you have to take 2 cups. I'll go into this in a minute. So you take 2 cups of warm scalded milk, and you and it's 1 cup of cold water, 2 tablespoons of salt, 2 to 3 tablespoons of sugar, 1 cup of vegetable oil, Crisco. She has specifically Crisco, but she's just going by name brand, so like vegetable oil, or 2 sticks of oleo, if you remember that name, which would be margarine or melted butter. So you need a cup of oil or 2 sticks of melted butter. And then you take 2 packages of dry yeast, a teaspoon of sugar, and a half a cup of warm water, and you mix that together to make the yeast packet. So put the yeast, some sugar, warm water, not hot because you don't want to kill the yeast. Mix that until the yeast dissolves and then it foams. So put the milk on the stove and let it get warm while you're letting the yeast do its thing. Then you add the milk, the warmed milk, the melted butter, a cup of cold water, the sugar and salt, and then you put the yeast in. And then you mix in 7 cups of flour. Over the years, my mom would add more, but 7 is really all you need. So 7 cups of flour, and I can remember, I don't have a sense of smell anymore, but I remember the smell of that bread when you put the yeast in there, and it smelled so good. I can remember that. And the milk and the butter, and it was yellow, and you'd start swirling it together, and it was so pretty. I thought, oh, this is so pretty. And then Grandma would start adding the flour. And I think I could probably mix it. And I remember 2 hands on the spoon, and my whole body, I'm starting to mix that. And after maybe 2 or 3, I'm probably not even 3 cups. I couldn't mix it anymore. And mine, very old grandmother, back in the 60s, if you were in your 80s or 90s, that was pretty old. I don't know how old she was when she died, but I was 6 and she had to be 145. Um, but she would mix that dough like no other. And after you mix it, and it'll still be lumpy, it'll be sticky. So you turn it out on a floured dough or a floured board, lots of flour on your board. Put the dough on there, and then sprinkle it with flour. Again, you're probably going to add almost maybe a whole nother cup of flour as you do this, but then you're going to knead the dough, more flour, and you just like smooth it flat and flip some in, so you've like folded over in half and push it with your heels of your hands. That's how I was taught to do it. Fold in a side and push it with the heel of your hand. Fold, and you keep doing that, adding more flour, or else your fingers are going to be really gross. So make sure you take off any rings, watches. You don't want those on when you start kneading this dough. But when the dough is no longer real sticky, when it's no longer sticky and it's smooth, because when you start to knead it, it'll be lumpy. So you knead it for maybe 10 minutes, keep adding flour. Then you put it back in your bowl, cover it with a towel, and put it in a warm place to rise. And it'll rise 2 to 4 hours, 2 at the minimum, in a warm place. You really want it to be warm. If it's not warm, the yeast doesn't work so well. So then when it doubles in size, then you put it again on a floured board or floured table, counter, whatever you want to work on, floured surface. Sprinkle flour over the top of it and smooth it out till it's maybe a quarter to a half inch deep. And then you can use a rolling pin, but it should be so soft and light that you can just do it with your hands. That's what I usually do. Just press it out with my hands. Again, always floured. And no rings, or you're going to be cleaning out bread dough for a while. So then you can use a biscuit cutter. I use a glass, just a drinking glass, flour the edge, and you want to press them, cut the biscuits as close together as you can, as close to the edge as you can. It'll make it, well, the original rollout, I think I can put 15 on a cookie sheet. I have long cookie sheets. So like 45, because I'll do 3 cookie sheets worth. So you'll probably get like 40 on your first, and then you re-roll the dough, and you knead it back, and it'll be elasticy. The second time to knead it and like recut biscuits, it's not as, it's more stretchy, like elasticy and stiffer. Once you cut it once and then you go to re-knead it, it's stiffer. So then you might want to like work it with your hands like a pizza dough, where you want to stretch it out a little bit. Again, keep flour and on your board, on your dough, and you can cut out more rolls that way. And I usually get like 45 rolls, and then there's still a little extra, and I won't do it a third time because it's just, the dough is too, it doesn't want to spread anymore after that. So you can, what we did, Chloe and I did yesterday, was there was just a little left, and we made a little tiny loaf that she took home and baked. And I haven't asked her how she liked it, how it turned out for her. But you can do that, or what my mother used to do all the time. I don't remember my grandmother doing this, but my mother used to do this. You take the dough and turn it into like a donut, make it, grab a glob and donut it with a big hole in the center and deep fry it, and then put brown sugar on it. So it's kind of like an elephant ear. Not an elephant ear, a funnel cake. It kind of, deep fried dough with powdered sugar on it. So yummy. But we didn't do that yesterday. We made a little loaf of it, and Chloe took that home. So once, excuse me, once you make the biscuits, you have the rolls on the cookie sheet, then you, again, in another warm place, and you let them rise until they double in size again. Then you bake them 375 for about 20 minutes. And they'll be golden brown on top. And if you do it in a loaf, you bake it for about 40 minutes. So that's the whole recipe. And it's good. Uh, my mother always used to use oil. She always used to use the cooking oil when she made them. And yesterday, Chloe and I decided to try butter. And they were, I got this hair sticking out over here. They were so good. I've never made them myself using only the butter. I only remember doing it with my mom with the oil. But I really love home, fresh butter, real butter. And that's all I buy. I don't buy margarine. So I don't know. We just said, let's try the butter and see how they worked out. And my husband was like, oh, fresh from the oven. That's the best time to eat them. Oh, they're so good. That's what I had for dinner was a roll and butter yesterday. It's just so good. So anyway, you try grandma's recipe. It's really good. So my mom had a recipe box, little wooden box with a little chef like character on the front of it that she had her whole life. And she would get a recipe from someone, write it on a little index card, and she would put who the recipe came from and what year she got it. She didn't always put the year. Uh, she started that probably later in life, like in the early 70s, so not real late in life, but she has recipes without dates on them, but she had a lot of recipes in the box that have dates on it. And she had a card with the bread recipe that after she passed away, I stole the recipe card out of her recipe box and brought it home because I lost my copy or I didn't have it. I always used hers with her because we'd always do it together. Um, and like my great grandmother and I, we would bake bread. I don't know if we did it every week or how often because sometimes we would make cookies and stuff. But like I said, I only remember the bread. Um, but as a family tradition, since my mom started making, because it takes a long time. It's not that you have to work on the dough a long time, but it's an all day project because you have to let it rise a couple of hours, a couple of times, So, uh, like we make bread rolls for Thanksgiving. We make that for Christmas as a general tradition. I did not make them this year for Thanksgiving. But Chloe and I did make them now for Christmas. So usually once or twice a year is all that we ever make them. Maybe Easter sometimes, but it's like holidays, uh, which is really kind of sad because they're really good, and it's the tradition that has developed. And I have made them with my daughter. I've made them with, I believe, both of my daughter-in-laws and all of my grandkids have made rolls with me. Um, and I feel like I want to make another batch and make it with the little grandkids, because they do love to bake, but it's an all day project. So it's hard because they're little and they, lose their attention for it. Um, so anyway, that is what we did yesterday. Now, we did have to go. Chloe and I went, like I said, we had to take my dad to the doctor, to the dentist. And she had been, Chloe is 18, class of 2021. And when she was in third, fourth grade, whatever it is that you learn to write in cursive, longhand, that was the year that they decided that we weren't going to teach that in schools here anymore. Everything is done in print. Um, everything's on the computer and it's all print. And so Chloe's class was the first year that they did not teach cursive writing in schools, longhand, if that's what you're familiar with. So Chloe does not really know how to read that. She can sign her name. That was all that they were taught, was how to sign your name, because that's still your legal signature. So she's 18 and she has been little by little trying to teach herself to read cursive writing. You can't even read the original Constitution of our country if you can't read cursive writing. That being said, they've introduced cursive writing back into the school systems. Now, Chloe is 18. Madison is 12. She was taught cursive writing in her school, third and fourth grade. you know, they were taught. I don't think they spent a great deal of time on it, but they were taught it. She can read it. She can read it better than Chloe can. So back to the that's a long explanation to get into. Chloe wanted to go through more of my mother's recipes because she was reading the bread recipe, which was written by my mother, and it was in cursive writing, and she stumbled through it. She did very well, actually, for really not ever learning cursive. Some of it she couldn't figure out what the letters were, but some of the letters that she could figure out, I had to help her maybe only on 2 words. So that being said, she said, you know what? I would love to get Grandma's. Now, this would be my mother, so my mother would be her great grandmother. She would love to have her recipe box and translate all of the pattern, all of the, not pattern, all of the recipes. I thought that was so funny. She kept saying she wants to translate them and she wants my help, and then she wants to try some of them. And so that's how she wants to practice reading cursive writing, is by translating my mother's. I'm like, it's not a foreign concept here. This isn't a foreign language, girlfriend. And she's like, it is to me, Grammy. I'm like, yeah, okay, all right. So she went through a couple of recipes. We did get the box. My dad was fine with letting her have it. He's not going to use it. And so she was looking through. She's like, oh, I want to make this. I want to make that. So she has big plans for us while she's on Christmas break, that she's going to come over and we're going to translate recipes and do a lot of cooking while she's on Christmas break. So that's kind of cool. But when she was going through the recipe box, obviously the bread recipe wasn't in there because I had it and it was on my windowsill because that's where we were using it. Windowsill above. I have a window above the kitchen counter where we were mixing the dough together. So she's going through the recipe box and she finds this recipe, and it doesn't have any title on it. It doesn't say what it is at the beginning of the recipe. And the writing is different. And she says, this isn't Grandma's writing. Who is this? Now I'm going to show you this. This is the original recipe from my great grandmother. So this would be Chloe's like 3 greats of grandmother. It's her original recipe with all of her original stains and everything all over it. And Chloe was reading it, and she's like, 2 cups scalded milk, 1 cup cold water, 2 tablespoons. She says, Grammy, this is the bread recipe. Isn't this the recipe we just made? And so I start looking. I'm like, yes, that's the bread recipe. So we pulled my mother's out, and I never even knew that it was in there. My great grandmother's recipe in her own handwriting. It was ripped down the center, so Chloe taped it from the back, and this was the only frame I had available. She's like, you got to put this in a frame so it doesn't get ruined. So we did, and this says mother. I was always supposed to put a picture of my mom in here, which I never did do. But I said, you know what? She's the mother of the mothers, because this was my great-great-grandmother on my dad's side, but still. And I kind of like it in this frame because of what it says on it. Selfless, wise, loyal, kind, patient, warm, strong, friend, caring, dear, smart, funny, true. All these things remind me of that wonderful old woman. So we're going to keep it in this frame. And Chloe says, you need to keep that in the kitchen. I don't know. I don't know if it'll stay in the kitchen because it'll get yucky there. But it will stay out. I have a shelf full of items from ancestors and in my old yarn room. So I think it'll go there. And it'll get pulled down now every time I want to make bread because Chloe has the recipe from my mother. And I'll keep the recipe from my grandmother. My great-grandmother. So anyway, I thought you might enjoy that little story. And that is what we did do yesterday for, not Vlogmas, but just for Christmas. And we didn't get any other baking done, but we did do that baking. That's all I got for you. I might do some baking today. I do have to do laundry, so that's not so fun. And I haven't gotten out any Christmas cards yet. I told you I'm so behind. I do plan on sending Christmas cards. They're just not out yet to anybody. There's a lot of you out there that I would like to send cards to. So cross your fingers, I'll get that done soon. I still have more gifts to wrap. I have to put up my tree. I haven't even shopped for my own kids. My grandkids are almost done, but my that's the important ones. Got to get the grandkids. So that's where we're at with that. And I have nothing more. It's been a half an hour. I hope you enjoyed my little ride down memory lane there with my great grandmother and our bread making. I do have to call Chloe and see if she baked that bread last night and how she liked it. I hope she tried it. So I will see you hopefully tomorrow. Happy Vlogmas. Go watch everybody. It's been fun. See ya. Bye.